Hey y'all, we are back again for another episode of Blooming in Process. As I told you guys before, we are interviewing some amazing women on our podcast this season. So you guys are in for a treat because we have a guest today, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear her story. I can't wait to talk to her. I can't wait to dive into her God story. I am so excited to have her today. Please welcome our guest, Quina. Quina.
Quina.
I was like, I know how it is for have somebody butcher your name. I was like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I do not want to butcher her name. So please welcome her to the show. Introduce yourself. Tell us about who you are. You know, I always like to start our sessions, guys, with a dive into who this person is at their core. So that is one of the questions that I ask because I think it really reveals so much about an individual when they can know, or then when they know who they are at their core. And then also you guys can connect, if you guys have a similar core, this will be opportunity for you guys to get to know her as well. So tell us, who are you at your core?
I love that question. It's also one of the hardest questions to answer. It's like one of those, hey, who's God? Like, how do you begin that? But I love that question. I thought of three words in particular: loved, self-revealing, and relentless. And yeah, so the reason I say loved is that's the most important one. Is that I strive to, center my identity on being loved by God. And I think honestly, nothing matters more than that, more than knowing that you're loved by God. It's a thing that I've come back to over and over again the last, 16 years, I think it's been, of walking with Christ. So at the end of the day, I just try to remember and see myself as loved. And then self-revealing, I'm not sure if there's a better term for that, but for me, I think I'm a woman who is at my best when I'm taking the time to listen to my body, to listen to my emotions, and then to offer all of the experiences I'm going through back to God, while also listening to God and His word. And I think that's because I'm a woman who's been deeply inclined to offer my words, to offer words that bring clarity to people about themselves, about their experiences, about God. And for me, that often happens through my poetry, through teaching the Bible, through editing, writing, all things words, basically, and of course, in just my one-to-one relationships with people. So self-revealing is that's really true. And I feel like that's even just a part of my calling, if that makes sense. And then relentless is not a word I would have ever used to describe myself just even a few years ago. But my husband started calling me that the last couple years because the last couple years have been marked by a lot of chronic illness and a lot of chronic pain and a lot of having to, my body changing, a lot of bad, hard news, fertility, to all of the things, and having to say no to opportunities just as opportunities were starting to present themselves. And so it's been like a lot of limitation, and I'm in the middle of it right now. But so basically my body constantly fails me. Of course, a part of my story, and probably everyone's story, is friends failing, loved ones failing you, just constant trials and difficulty. But for me in particular, just my body failing me. And I do often lament that. And I allow myself to, or I try to at least allow myself to feel that grief deeply. But then there's this something in me, and it's almost like this audacity to thrive, like this audacity to get back up and start again. And so that's a word I would definitely use now, is relentless. Yeah.
Relentless. Let me get my notes out. Y'all know how I am. So all these speakers have like amazing things they say, and when they hit like a tweetable moment, I usually like, she said the audacity to thrive. Ooh, good. That's so good. Okay, so let's talk about, you said 3 words. You said love. What was the second one?
Self-revealing.
Self-revealing. Oh, that's good. And then the third one is relentless.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us more about the self-revealing one.
Yeah. So there's this author that I love to read, Henry Newen. He wrote this book he wrote a lot of books, but he wrote this book that I really liked called The Wounded Healer. And I read it a few years ago, and he talks about the importance of ministers not just being able to communicate to an audience, this is what God says, or this is what the word says. Obviously, that's important. But the importance of ministers understanding the inner working of their own heart, or the inner life, the life of the soul for themselves. And the more self-aware you are, the more that you grow in that self-awareness and are able to put words to what you're feeling, what you've experienced, your story, some awareness of your story, that ends up not just being self-serving, but it actually really ends up being a service to other people, because you're able to communicate, yeah, this is my story. This is how I process things. This is how I'm experiencing this struggle. And then obviously as a believer, you're, hopefully able to articulate how God is interacting or even interrupting that story. And so when I read that, I was like, that's exactly what I'm like, that's me. Like, that's literally what I want to do. So a big part of my story is in friendships, in relationships, as well as, like I mentioned, through my writing, is just this noticing this tendency to be like, hey, here's my heart, here's the inner workings of it as I understand it at this moment, and here's how I believe God is interacting with it. Here you go. And that's a very vulnerable thing to do. It's very risky thing to do, and I've been burnt for it multiple times, in some pretty severe ways. And yet and maybe it goes with being relentless, but there's this sense of, that's what I'm made to do, though. Like that's where I've seen people helped the most, in my life. So.
Oh, wait, that is so good. So a couple of things I love that you said is this idea that it's almost like the self-awareness that you've had, and that revelation of that self-awareness and how it could connect with other people. And then the strength and bravery, because let's just call a thing a thing. Being vulnerable is not easy. It's very exposed. You feel exposed, but having the bravery to share that with other people, I think is so powerful. God is definitely dealing with me about vulnerability in this season. So I just connected with that, and love that you have understood that the people, like, there's power in that self-awareness, and then that revelation of it too. I'm like, yes, girl, keep on going. Okay, so you said something else that I want to go back to, but before we get there, you mentioned earlier, like how you're currently kind of dealing with some like health struggles and how it's kind of been hard. What do you believe that God is teaching you in this season about during your lamenting? Like, what do you have? I've been there. I've been there through seasons of lamenting and seasons of grief. And grief doesn't just mean grieving a person. You can grieve a season. You can grieve an opportunity. There's a lot of different ways that we grieve. So just tell us how you have been walking through that, and processing it and understanding it for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's funny because this morning I'm just going through my read through the Bible, reading plan. And I just happened to be in 2 Samuel. So it's this part where, David has finally become the king, and he asks the Lord, do you want the Philistines come up against him? He asks the Lord, do you want me to go up against them and fight? And God's like, yes, I got your back. And God gives him victory over his enemies, and he celebrates that. He's obviously happy about that. But then you go to the next chapter as they're bringing the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, God's presence, back to Israel. And Uzzah touches the ark and immediately dies. God strikes him down. He didn't regard the Lord as holy. And it says David felt angry. And then it says David was afraid of God. And then if you keep reading, once he sees that, no, God's presence is a blessing. He's blessing this other household because the Ark of the Covenant's there. He determines to bring God's presence back to Jerusalem, and he celebrates. So, I mean, just within those two chapters is like the life of the emotions for the Christian, and that I've experienced within chronic illness is like, you have this breakthrough, you finally have a diagnosis or a successful surgery or whatever medication that's actually helpful. And you're like, yes, God, you're breaking through, this is a victory. This is a success. And then the ways of the Lord can just be so confounding and honestly frustrating and even enraging at times. Like, now I'm back in bed and my back is given out, or now I'm experiencing that same thing again, or I need surgery again. And so for me, I'm learning through that lament, one, that God can handle it. Just as, when you read the Psalms, and so many of them are penned, of course, by David himself, and it's the life of the emotions. It's the relationship of, God, I'm angry at you. God, this feels cruel. It feels like this is just a cosmic joke. Like, what is becoming of my life? Like, does it really honor you that I'm just in bed and spending all the money and not making any of it, And so I think when I've been brutally honest with God in lament, like, every time it has prepared my heart to hear a word from the Lord more clearly, more profoundly, with more gratitude. And I can just tell you story after story of a snotty-nosed night where I'm just weeping and crying out to God, and honestly just being brutally honest with him, and the next morning reading something in the word, or hearing an encouragement from a friend, or receiving something that was just so specific to God, was like, this is so you type, this is so Quina, that you just know that was from the Lord. It almost just kind of heightens your spiritual awareness to be in that practice of lament. And I do believe it leads to deeper, more profound joy in the end. So that's certainly something I'm, maybe one of the biggest things I'm learning through chronic illness.
Woo, I love that you said that. It really connected with me because recently I went through something and I feel like it broke my heart. I feel like God broke my heart. Like, I don't know if he broke my heart or the situation. I think the situation probably broke my heart. Yeah, because I went in with expectations, and it just and I remember just crying and just thinking it just felt like everything was imploding on me. And I remember just remembering in my prayer closet, this deep bawling just came out of me. And it was like the whole world, I realized I was carrying so much, and it took this moment, it's almost this breaking, for me to release not just that, but everything that I was carrying. And I sat in that moment, and I became so spiritually, I feel like in the spirit, became so spiritually sensitive. It made me sensitive. It made me sensitive to God. It made me kind of break out of my bubble a little bit. You know how we can live in a bubble. And I don't know if God, I think he allows certain things to happen. And it was after the fact that I remember just worshiping and coming out of the prayer closet. And I remember feeling like, man, the situation sucks, but that was good for me. I thought to myself that was good for me. I hate feeling that way. I hate being in pain, but that was good for me, because now that it's just another level of faith it's a whole nother level of faith when you allow God to walk with you through hard times. And it also makes you compassionate towards other people, I feel, as well, in terms of their pain, and really, really sensitive to what other people might be going through. So I don't know about you, but I love that you had mentioned how he can handle it. Like he can handle our anger, he can handle our tears, he can handle our disappointments and our truth, about how we feel about it. But at the end of the day, I always rest in the fact that whatever he allows, there's a bigger plan, because he will not allow something that is not good for us in some way, that there's not a bigger plan. I've given up the fact that it's all about me, because I realize it ain't. You know what I mean? So I love that you said that. So you have said so much, and I want to know, like, is this how you've always been, or has it been more of the recent struggles, or have you always had this mentality of knowing God this way and walking with him this way? Like, how have your walk with Christ been over the years?
Wow, mixed bag. So I came to know the Lord at 16 through a girl on my volleyball team in high school. And since then, especially in those beginning years, of being a believer, for me, it was like, I'm serious about the Lord, I'm zealous to a fault. And you can ask my mom for the receipts on that. I was like, I had no understanding of the trauma I had a lot of trauma in high school, like a lot, that I'm still working through at age 32. And I didn't really understand how some of the madness that I was experiencing in my life at that time, how God maybe would have, or maybe was speaking in that. And so I had a lot of anger, lots and lots of anger, but there was a genuineness to my faith, a genuine love for Christ. And I just look back at that time, and sometimes it can be really hard for me to not just be mad at myself, to have this expectation of this little 16-year-old to have the experience and mind of a 32-year-old. And I imagine maybe when I'm 52, I'll be like, come on, girl, when you were 32, you should have, had this mindset. But so no, I've always, since I came to know the Lord, it was a very drastic change for me, but it also has been a lot of failure, moral failure, a lot of being hurt, being betrayed, a lot of sinning and getting sinned against, a lot of physical suffering with lots of different sicknesses and ailments to this day. And so I think there's just been a steady train of trials and failures and things like that in my walk with Christ that has just constantly chipped away at the pride that I had and still have to some degree, that says I am my own hero, or I'm the boss, and I got it all together. And I think I can say I am relentless, but literally by the grace of God, like I have fallen apart more times than I can count. So I don't know if I can say I've always been like that. I think there's been so many years with a lack of self-awareness, but I'm just growing. I'm just learning, and constantly have had a heart that has sought to be teachable. Yeah.
I feel that. And I thank you for sharing that, because I think that we need people to share their stories about the good and the bad, right? It ain't a pretty walk. I'm sorry to tell y'all, it ain't a pretty walk. You're safe, you are secure, but it ain't always pretty. And then you have your flesh, right? Your flesh does what it wants to do when it wants to do it. I'm a witness to that. I definitely surprised myself on more than one occasion and said, whoa, girl, how did you find yourself here? You know, and I thank you for sharing that, because we need to tell people, to show people, to help people to realize that this Christian walk is not, it doesn't make you perfect, and it doesn't disqualify because if you're not, right? I actually think that he is made strong in our weakness.
Yeah.
I believe that that's our generation. I believe that our definitely this generation is empowered by our weakness. It is not empowered like, yeah, Superwoman, fly. Show me the God of your humanity, of your humanness.
Yeah.
Of when you make those dumb choices or walk into some silly situation and find yourself trapped in a place where you wonder, how am I going to get out of this? And I'm a witness that God is a God that will release you. He will redeem you. If I had to put something across my head, it would be forgiven and redeemed, because that's just the theme of my life, from the mistakes and the failures and the problems and the pride and the selfishness and the control that I thought I had. And then I found myself in the worst place. And I thought, how did you get here? You need to back all the way out. But the Lord was with me every step of the way. That's the thing about him. He's with you in your mess. He's the God of your mess. Mess. And he can handle that too.
Yes. Amen.
Okay, so tell us more about one of your resources. Like, tell us what you do. What how do people know you, or what do you speak to? What audience do you speak to? What topics do you speak on the most?
Yeah, it's been a little bit, not everywhere. It's definitely pretty much been just Christian writing, but in the sense of like my poetry is a little bit everywhere. But I've been doing spoken word poetry for, I don't know, basically since I came to know the Lord, which is a kind of a crazy story in itself. Like, I was not talented at creative writing at all. And then I came to know the Lord and I started to grow, and like out would come poetry. And so that I've always really tried to use to be, like I said before, bringing clarity to people's hearts and experiences, as well as clarity to who God is. So I've done spoken word videos. Some people know me through that. Some people know me through just articles I've written, some stuff on the Gospel Coalition, Risen Motherhood, different publications. And then I have some children's books, which is some of the most fun work I've done so far. And then I edit as well. So I get to, one of my great joys really is just coming alongside people who have a passion for whatever that thing is, and getting to help them communicate that a little more clearly or more beautifully. And through that, it's like, I almost feel like I'm cheating, because I get like a cheat code, because I get to learn from their hard work, their research, through my editing. So I love coming along. So that's the stuff that people don't necessarily know that I do, because it's not really a pop, it's not like out there, everyone sees it type of gift, but it's something I really enjoy doing.
Oh man, I love that. You are such a bright light. I don't know what is in your future, but I am super excited about what he's about to do in you. I just feel him with you. I feel his presence here with us right now. And wow, I'm just really excited about your future. And I want people to know you and connect with you. Whatever is flowing out of you is a well of water. Like, I just see a well of water flowing out of you. And I'm excited about it. I'm like, yeah, y'all go drink from that well. She got some truth. You haven't heard it yet. She's been preaching from the word, and I love that. I love that you are in the Bible, even in your season of lamenting and understanding that this is a season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seasons
Yeah.
begin and seasons end, and new seasons begin again. So you are in a season, and yet you're still pouring out. And I love that. And so I just want everybody to connect with you. So tell us, how can they stay connected with you? And where can
Oh,
they
yeah.
find children's book? Can you name them? Can you name your children's
Yes. The first book is called Love Made, and it's a story of God's overflowing creative heart. And
book?
that tells the creation story through a Trinitarian lens in a poetic way. And then the second book is called Love Gave, a story of God's greatest gift. And that continues a story of redemptive history. And it actually goes all the way to, our sin, our need for a savior, the coming of Christ, and what he did for us on the cross and resurrection. And it does that same poetic style, and it also does that same Trinitarian lens. And then the third book will come out next year, and it'll kind of round everything out, and that'll highlight the work of the Holy Spirit.
I'm going to get one. I'm going to go get all of these because I'm looking on Amazon now. And I recommend you guys to go get them too, because I have 2 kids, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. How old are your kids?
She's 5. I have one daughter. She's 5.
Okay. I'm gonna get those for my kids because I'm always looking for Christian-based children's books. And I love your spirit. And it's not always that you get to like meet the author and see what kind of spirit's behind the person. So the fact that I got to meet you, I'm like, I got to meet the author. I'm so excited. I'm super excited about that. So go ahead and get it, guys. Is it on Amazon?
It is. Yeah, Amazon, Christian Book, I think Lifeway, wherever, Barnes & Noble,
Okay,
anywhere.
cool. It's called Love Made, guys. That's one. The other one is called Love Gave. You can get it, cop it on Amazon. I'm going to cop both of those for my children. Highly suggest y'all support as well. And then online, we can stay connected with you where?
Yeah, Instagram mostly. I mean, I'm on Twitter and Facebook, but mostly Instagram. It's Quina, which is QUINA _Aragon, ARAGON.
Quina Aragon, at Quina _Aragon. And I'll, of course, have that in the podcast information or on the Blooming and Process page, Facebook and Instagram, so you guys can connect with her there as well. And we will be shouting her out all over. So can't wait until that time comes. Yeah, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a joy. I just love, you're very easy to talk to. So I love that. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. You are so welcome. Well, we're going to end it there, guys. Remember to connect with us at Blooming in Process on Instagram. Sign up for our email list because y'all be first to know. Don't forget to register for our kickoff event happening on October 2nd. And we'll be back again next week for yet another amazing guest. Have a good one, guys.